Hare Krishna, everyone. Thanks again so much for joining. Now, finally, we talk about female superiority. Female superiority. That glorious, glorious female energy is so much stronger than the male energy. That's why men need that energy to be inspired. Without that female energy, there won't be much inspiration for men. Men would still sit in a cave around a fire, that's it. That's a general saying. No, female energy is so powerful, most important. And now is actually the part where I gonna read one purport from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in that purport, it's so many aspects are in a condensed form. Srila Prabhupada expertly presented what I just discussed, basically, in one short purport. Which is so hard to digest if we contaminate it with Kali Yuga ideas. We won't be able to listen, so hopefully now we have a little bit more access into that purport. Applying nothing box principle, trampling upon a snake. It's all in there. But it's so difficult for us to apply, to apply soberly. Later on at the very end, I want to do for entertainment's sake a little exercise at the very end, not of today's session, but at the very end somewhere in the presentation. We're not talking so much in the whole presentation about the etiquette of husband and wife and so on. That's not the purpose of the presentation. So we will not use, we don't want to apply what we discussed on Vaishnava etiquette and culture, why that is, but we will understand as soon as we deal with that topic, and then we want to apply. That's nothing box. That's why it's supposed to be like that. This is about trampling upon a snake, and this is false ego nurse. Now it makes all sense if we use those mechanical principles I try to somehow present. Then on Vaishnava etiquette, between husband and wife and so on, and mother and children, parents and so on, then it becomes very clear. But I don't want to do that. I'd use something else at the very end of the presentation. But now let's look, and I need my glasses for that. Let's look at that purport, where Prabhupada gives it all. And it's one of the most important purports in the Bhagavatam when it comes to Grihasta Ashrama. Most instructive. It's so important, and it shows female superiority. Actually, maybe not at first sight. And we in the 9th canto, in chapter 3, the marriage of Sukanya and Javana Muni. So that's that pastime. That's short. It's a very brief story where this princess, the daughter of the king, Sukanya, in childish play, pierces a couple of glowworms with a stick. And anyway, the whole thing is then Javana Muni became angry, and her father married her to him. And he was old. He could be his grandfather. But he was very irritable. He was extremely irritable. But she understood his mood. She was trained. And as a young girl married to such an old man, she still performed the duties as a wife. Very nicely, trying to understand and please her husband. Which lady nowadays would do that if she would be forcibly married to an old man, even if he's a great, he's a great Muni, and Munis are always irritable, right? Who would do that? But and of course, in that pastime, he was conquered by her devotion to him and transformed himself into a young man. And then her father saw his daughter with a young man, and he became so angry. What are you doing? You're abandoning your husband. You bring ruin over our family and so on. But then the whole situation became resolved. They explained the situation, and her father was very pleased with her. So that's the very short pastime, but there's so much instruction in there. Yeah. So, chapter 3, the Canto 9, chapter 3, we're going to read, and I'll just read the English. We're going to read text 10, that very important purport, and the verse as well. Javana Muni was very irritable, but since Sukanya had gotten him as her husband, she dealt with him carefully according to his mood. Knowing his mind, she performed service to him without being bewildered. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is an indication of the relationship between husband and wife. A great personality like Javana Muni has the temperament of always wanting to be in a superior position. Sounds familiar? Such a person cannot submit to anyone. Therefore, Javana Muni had an irritable temperament. His wife, Sukanya, could understand his attitude, and under the circumstances she treated him accordingly. If any wife wants to be happy with her husband, she must try to understand her husband's temperament and please him. This is victory for the woman. Even in the dealings of Lord Krishna with his different queens, it has been seen that although the queens were the daughters of great kings, they placed themselves before Lord Krishna as his maidservants. Oh, well, that's Krishna, not just my husband, right? However great a woman may be, she must place herself before her husband in this way. That's Srila Prabhupada talking, not me. That is to say, she must be ready to carry out her husband's orders and please him in all circumstances. Then her life will be successful. When the wife becomes as irritable as the husband, their life at home is sure to be disturbed or ultimately completely broken. In the modern day, the wife is never submissive, and therefore home life is broken even by the slightest incidents. Either the wife or the husband may take advantage of the divorce laws. According to the Vedic law, however, there is no such thing as divorce laws, and the woman must be trained to be submissive to the will of her husband. How horrible. Westerners contend that this is a slave mentality for the wife, but factually it is not. It is the tactic by which a woman can conquer the heart of her husband, however irritable or cruel he may be. In this way we clearly see that although Javana Muni was not young but indeed old enough to be Sukanya's grandfather, and was also very irritable, Sukanya, the beautiful young daughter of a king, submitted herself to her old husband and tried to please him in all respects. Thus she was a faithful and chaste wife. And as we already mentioned, later on he was so pleased, despite him being so irritable. Her service pleased him so much she conquered his heart, and he transformed himself into a young, handsome man. Obviously, don't expect that from any man in Kali Yuga, okay? But there are quite a few points. Some we discussed already. And it's very challenging, submissive, slave mentality, right? But again, false ego nurse. Understanding in the proper way. Yeah. Obviously we had here false ego nurse, nothing box. We didn't discuss that. Slave, snake, trampling upon a snake. Now I got confused. Trampling upon a snake. So irritable, right? And most men are like that. If the wife knows better, as we discussed, men become so irritable. And then home life will be broken. Because the man cannot submit to anyone. Especially not his wife. He's the hero, he is the great. And if the wife understands that and treats him accordingly, rebranding the nothing box he already has, nursing his false ego, which he would do himself, licking his wounds after being in battle, right? She rebrands what he could deal with almost by himself as hers as well, not just the inspirational energy. She's conquering his heart. She can even, she can even conquer a cruel man's heart. And cruel means he finds pleasure, a person finds pleasure in making others suffer. That's what cruel mean. But by that tactic, how Prabhupada calls it, it's a tactic. It's external. It's not absolute. It's not that the husband is superior. But if he is treated as superior, she conquers his heart for sure, forever. Forever and ever, right? That's all what all love songs are about. It's a tactic. That's a wife which is submissive, who understands the art, who is trained, who is patient, understands her role as false ego nurse. She will be able to conquer her husband's heart, no matter how irritable, how cruel, or whatnot his heart is. That's the power of female energy. Absolutely powerful. A man cannot do that. A man cannot do that. A man's energy is not as powerful. And you may ask, well, where is that in the Bhagavatam? Where's the verse? Where's the quote? And I don't know, maybe there is a quote, I do not know. But instead of looking into the Bhagavatam, we can look at our founder Acharya's life, Srila Prabhupada's life. It's so instructive if we understand it in the proper way. He was married, and we don't know much, and I don't want to speculate too much. But his wife was not supportive of his preaching efforts, as we know. He had programs at home, right? He had programs at home, and she was in another room drinking tea with her friends or by herself. Right? And that was going on for quite some time. So long so actually that Srila Prabhupada was talking about his godbrothers, about his situations. And we know there's some nice details about it. Not details, but just it's been mentioned in our Srila Prabhupada, A Friend to All. That's an amazing book by Mullah Prakriti Mataji, where she interviewed devotees who knew Prabhupada from before he left to America. And memories, what people had. And we can see here Prabhupada talked about that with his godbrothers. And they were advising him, why are you doing all that? Why are you running around doing so many things and maintaining your family? They are unfavorable. They are unfavorable. Why are you doing all that? Just leave home. And yes, we understand. His wife was not favorable to that preaching, to his mission. What a man got to do, what he got to do, right? Remember? Especially if it's such a glorious thing, like following the instructions of the spiritual master. He had to do it all by himself. He wouldn't be energized by his wife. I mean, that's how we see Srila Prabhupada, what an amazing personality he is, completely empowered by Krishna. Right? Nevertheless, despite him not being inspired by the wife to do so, he still moved forward, right? And he was dutiful. He maintained his family. Right? He was doing the business. He had his plans, his ideas of how to do it, how to fulfill the order of the spiritual master, and be a dutiful Grihasta. Even though he didn't have the support of the wife. But then at one stage, after discussing that with his god brothers, we don't know how often, a few comments on the side in this book. His wife sold his Bhagavatam, as we all know, and then the famous quote of, he was obviously upset. Do you want me or tea? There was this, do you want me or tea moment. And then he left home finally. What changed? Instead of just not supporting him, her attitude changed to sabotaging. So the situation escalated in the wrong direction. And ultimately that's what Srila Prabhupada waited for. And we have to understand men are slow. Just coming back to that point, right? I don't know for how long that went on. We cannot speculate too much, right? It went on for years, if not a decade. Srila Prabhupada knew for sure that day will come where he has to leave home. He just didn't know when it will be. And then that was the signal. All right, that's the signal. It was not some spontaneous thing. And we could also say, oh well, otherwise, going with the wife overseas, probably, Krishna arranged it all in such a way that Srila Prabhupada goes as sannyasi and founder acharya to preach and so on. Otherwise, his mission wouldn't be a success. We can speculate so much about the whys and, Prabhupada is Shakyavesh and this, that. Fact remains, he could not change the heart of his wife. And how many hearts did Srila Prabhupada change in his lifetime before he went to the West? In the West, how many hearts did he change? So many! We cannot even count them. So many hearts Srila Prabhupada changed, but he could not change the heart of his wife. As we know, no matter how we argue about it, that fact remains. Not powerful enough. And if Srila Prabhupada can't do it, who are we? That's how dependent we are, actually, as men. When we realize that, how dependent we are on our wife, it's very humbling. And we may only recognize that if we're in a situation which is maybe not so favorable. If everything goes all right, we won't be able to recognize it. But if we go through struggles in our ashram, then we may get a glimpse of that. Right? So female energy is so far superior, so much stronger to the male energy. The wife can change the heart of her husband through her service, through her dedication to him, no matter how unfavorable he may be, how irritable he may be, how cruel his heart may be. Through her service, through her submission, through understanding his needs, his temperaments, everything, she can conquer his heart. The other way around, it does not work. It's up to the lady's heart, to the lady to decide if she wants to or not. A man cannot help but being conquered. A lady decides if she lets him enter his heart, her heart or not. It's her decision. It's almost a conscious choice. And her nurses, her mothers, her aunties, her grandmother, and so on, they may encourage her to change her attitude. But if she does not want, she does not want. If she wants tea, she wants tea. No matter how much he would beg and try to convince her. And whatever a man would be able to do, if he gave everything, if she doesn't want, she doesn't want. Whereas a man's heart will be completely softened like butter. Simply through the loving, affectionate service the wife gives him, renders to him. His heart will be like butter melting away. Through her submissive service, through her love and affection. Not through nagging, not through I'm in the equal position, not through all this sort of stuff. No, through her love. And then she will get everything she needs, like I mentioned before. Anyway, so this is the superior energy, the female energy, so much more powerful than the man's male energy. But you may wonder, whoa, it seems like so much to learn. As I said, it probably takes 10 generations to come to perfection. For our generation, we only have to break that vicious cycle we're in. So let's look at that a little bit more. But we just may wonder, so how does it all work? How do we learn the art? Of dealing with those mechanics, especially in the female body. How do we learn that art? It seems like so much to learn. Again, it's no rocket science. What it requires is almost, I don't know how to call it. I just call it female ladies, Matajis. Mataji's parampara. It's not quite a parampara because you can start it. It's easier if it's there, but you can start it from scratch. And how it's traditionally done, and also funny story. When I got the first time that's what's needed. Realization. That was in Mayapur actually. When I read Devaki Mataji's book. And then it just came to me. And it was quite funny situation came after that. So that we'll discuss now. The Mataji Parampara. And how it actually works. How that culture, that understanding is developed or transmitted, how it's been taught. And it's through a second parampara, so to speak. So let's look at that next time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.